Daniil Gleikhengauz is an honored Russian coach in Russia, part of the Team Tutberidze camp. He's one of the trio we have at Team Tutberidze, Daniil Gleikhengauz and Sergei Dudakov. Each of them are responsible for particular stuff, and they all come together. They really started the whole domination of Team Tutberidze, and he is the choreographer of many champions, including Alina Zagitova, Anna Sherbakova, and other skaters like Alexandra Trusova, Dalia Petrosyan, Evgenia Medvedeva, and Pyotr Gubenik. Now, when you think about the whole Team Tutberidze, you're always thinking about that trio, but there are actually lots of other staff members that are working in order to really progress and go into those results. And Daniil Gleikhengauz says that there's around 20 members involved in the preparation of an athlete, especially if they're quite big and famous and they're preparing for a massive tournament. But the trio, of course, started it all for 11 years. They've been working all together, and they all specialized in the same skills. There's not one responsible for another. The only thing that sets Sergei Dudakov apart is that he's not involved in the whole creating program process. So it's only Team Tutberidze and Daniil Gleikhengauz who work on these choreographies and for these program settings. Sergei Dudakov does not do that. He only preps the athletes. So they all have a part to play, and also all of them have to do the same thing, because if one coach isn't there, the other one has to cover. They go to separate competitions altogether, and so they need to do the same things. So what's interesting for me, and what I was surprised about breaking this interview down, is that Daniil Gleikhengauz actually choreographed a lot of the programs and set the programs for Pyotr Gubenik, especially the Olympic programs as well. Now, Pyotr Gubenik's Olympic programs are quite controversial because the music had copyright issues within the Olympics 3 days before he actually had to skate his short program. Now, Daniil Gleikhengauz is not Pyotr Gubenik's coach. Pyotr Gubenik has his own coach, Veronika, and she trains him in St. Petersburg, whereas Daniil Gleikhengauz trains in Team Tutberidze in Moscow. And while he was preparing Dalia Petrosyan, Veronika called him and said, oh, there's issues with Pyotr Gubenik's copyright music. Now, the whole copyright issues really just stemmed from the ISU a few years ago changed the rules. So before that, the athletes could submit the music and the ISU would be able to check whether it's copyright approved, whether it's not by artists. And so now a new rule has come down that the athlete is responsible to be able to make sure that their copyright music is approved, basically. And so within those 3 days, they had to change the whole music. Now, music plays a massive part in the whole choreography because it's tailored to the music, the whole step sequences. And so when the artist declined the opportunities, copyright issues, they had to change it. Daniil Gleikhengauz was like, okay, fine, we'll just go to the last year's program, that's fine, change it to that. But then that also had an issue, that program music. And so they had to find composers in Russia that could be approved within, literally have a whole document written out, signed, saying that they approve the whole thing going forward. And so it was just messy, but Daniil Gleikhengauz said that he wasn't angry, nor Pyotr was angry. They kind of expected difficulties, they expected some sort of circumstances to happen to set this pressure because, you know, it's Russian athletes at the end of the day, and it's really sad to think about, but it's always that the Russian athletes, there's something always put against them, and so they don't get surprised. What's funny is that Daniil Gleikhengauz said that he would be more surprised if something happy or something positive happened to the Russian athletes. He would have been in full shock. But Pyotr wasn't the only one that suffered with copyright issues. We had other foreign skaters such as Amber Glynn that also suffered through copyright issues, but then she got it all approved and done. Thankfully, she was allowed to perform it. So it was kind of more messier that way. So it wasn't just Pyotr Gubenik who had copyright issues, it was other skaters too. It was a common problem within those Olympics, really. But what these Olympics are very different to previous Olympics is that both Adelia and Piotr Kubenik, with the 4-year ban and them not being able to skate internationally, really, they didn't have a clue of what kind of ranking they are, because they don't have a ranking. The judges don't really see them, don't really compare them against the athletes. They're very new. And so it's very hard to judge them, because figure skating is very much 100% a subjective sport. There's a human factor that's involved, and so the judges really need to see you over time to be able to compare you, to be able to see you, to be able to understand how the whole goal is to operate, basically. And so without having really a clue of what to do, it's very hard. Of course, there's going to be underscoring. Of course, there's going to be harsh judging. Now, especially with Piotr Kubenik landing those 5 quads, like, you wouldn't expect that. And so the judges really didn't know what to put him against. Like, if they knew that in the warm-up, in the last warm-up, they would be doing these sorts of mistakes, like Ilya Malinin didn't do his full content, the other Japanese skaters also fell, then yes, he would have been ranked up much higher. But because they had expectation that Ilya Malinin will be able to land those 7 quads that he put, and other skaters as well being doing clean, then it just gives you that thing. So what Daniil Gleikhengauz described is that they kind of expected those results, the 6th place, the underscoring, essentially not being maybe on the podium. They were expecting that, so they didn't feel this unfairness. Of course, they felt the support from the country, support from the crowd, and there's so much that really was a lot of support, which he was actually very much surprised about. When the Daniil Gleikhengauz entered the rink, so many supporters came, and now this was the first warm-up stage, and usually the podium, the crowds don't really get filled up. They know that the last warm-up, that's when things get interesting. But people went to support Daniil Gleikhengauz. There was definitely a lot of cheering, and I think Daniil Gleikhengauz really felt the energy, because she performed really well in the short program without really any nerves and did amazing. And it kind of also proved a point to the whole international committee, the Olympic committee, the IOC committee, that really people are expecting Russia. People want Russia back, and the fans want to, even some athletes are excited when they're going to come back. Like figure skating as a whole, because Russia produced so many really good results, they've been always very dominant. It doesn't feel always complete within figure skating. And Daniil Gleikhengauz kind of compared it to having a starter, a main, and a dessert. That's what usually you go to a restaurant, and when the dessert is missing, it doesn't feel complete. And that's how the situation he feels about. But of course, there are going to be other skaters, maybe individual countries and individual skaters that might have not been happy for Daniil Gleikhengauz being there, or Piotr Kubenik. So it definitely was, the vibes were a little bit off, but overall, very much big support. And it was very weird at times, because this was the very first time that Russia came with a very small team. Before, Daniil had experienced 2 previous Olympics. 2018, they had a massive group, whole tables filled, especially in the canteen. And in 2022, again, a really big group. And this Olympics, the 2026, there were only 10 people, including him, and a very few athletes. So it just felt really small communities, especially when they were serving food and they saw a table Germany, a table for France, a table for the USA, and they were massive and filled. And it just felt like here they came, the neutral status, and they just had this small community which they didn't feel very much a part of, in the outskirts more. And for this Olympics as well, he was the only coach that was allowed to help Daniil Gleikhengauz, because he was accredited. Team Tutberidze was not allowed to be nowhere near Daniil Gleikhengauz within the training process, in the press, and also not allowed to be doing in the kiss and cry and being around her, just because I think the associations with Kamila Valieva doping scandal, etc. But we also had previously Daniil Gleikhengauz was not allowed to go into the Olympic qualifier in Beijing. He was not accredited for some reason. Then he appealed, and the Olympic Committee then allowed him to go to the Olympics with Daniil Gleikhengauz. He was asked about his reaction to Daniil Gleikhengauz falling from the quad Now, he said that, of course, there was always hope, there's praying, and there's chances that everything would go smooth. In the short program, she performed absolutely brilliantly, and then in the free program, maybe the nerves got to her a tiny bit, and he said that when she did fell, his heart sank to the bottom, but then he quickly picked her up, because even when the athlete is the same thing, you've done the mistake, you have to keep going, you have to look forward to nothing has happened. It's a lot of acting that you have to do and maintain it, because the competition isn't over. And of course, when the athlete finishes on, you can see whether it's good or bad. And he says when it is very sad, he just has moments of encouragement, support. He jokingly says that the coaching is also being a psychologist a lot of the time. He needs to have his qualification, and essentially that it's very much that you have to support the athlete, you have to motivate him or her, they have to keep them on the positive note. But there was also a very much contrast in the way that people supported Adalia and Piotr Kubenik. Piotr Kubenik, yes, he was very much underscored. So many people were putting that on social media because he landed those 5 quads brilliantly. He had a really clean performance, and maybe if he had some international ranking and some international competitions behind him, he would have been in top 3, maybe even winning the Olympics. However, people really supported him finishing in 6th place because there wasn't much expectation or demand from him, because the last time a male skater from Russia landed 5 quads has never been like that, so he really made history. But also, Plishenko was the only last person that placed on the podium and won from Russia. So in the males, it wasn't much demanded or expected, so that's why people were surprised, but also uplifting. With the Daniil Gleikhengauz, the reaction was slightly different. People were upset, people were encouraging and saying, it's okay, don't worry, we're all support for her. And finishing in 6th, he says that Daniil blames it more on the coaching team because of the whole dominance that Team Tutberidze really placed, that the last Olympics, Anna Shcherbakova, Alexandra Trusova 1st and 2nd, Yevgenia Medvedeva and Alina Zagitova 1st and 2nd. And so people were expecting that Daniil Gleikhengauz to take the gold home. And it didn't happen, and that's why it was very much a shock. But the situation is completely different because Daniil Gleikhengauz hasn't had 4 years of international experience. I don't think she's actually ever been set foot into an international competition, obviously not including the Olympic qualifier. And so that is a lot of pressure. You're a neutral status, you're the only one from the country competing, and the whole conflict situation going on. So it's definitely a lot of pressure and a lot of different circumstances that Daniil Gleikhengauz faced. And so instead of criticism, maybe start encouraging and saying that, you know what, this was an interesting kind of situation to move forward from, and so she can now focus and set herself up for the 2030 Olympics, which she hopes to do. So she did take quite a few rest days after the Olympics just to mentally and physically recover. And then now she's back on training. She's going to miss a few starts just to be able to heal. And again, she suffered quite a few injuries, but also I think it was mainly psychological issues that she had, because when you're in the whole mental state, then some sort of injuries happen. But now she's fully okay, fully restored, and is happy now just to find that whole encouragement again to start doing the training process. So how did Daniil Gleikhengauz actually start coaching? Now, his first steps really into figure skating was his dad encouraged him to go into figure skating. He trained as a singles skater, doing jumps, competing internationally, and then at 15 years old he had this serious injury that was in his foot that he couldn't really jump anymore. He took a pause, then came back for 2 more years. Afterwards, the pain wasn't going away from his feet and he couldn't jump anymore. So then he transitioned into ice dancing at 18 years old. did it for 3 years, and then at 21 he decided to stop skating and pursue his career in coaching. And of course he did ice shows on the side, but then he really found himself demonstrating a lot of the skating moves, and of course that has led him to being a very successful coach. Some more memes about the Olympics was more funnier things was the French choreographer, now I might say his name wrong, Daniil Gleikhengauz, which choreographed a lot of the men's events. If you see that meme of him having to change his clothes all the time. Now Daniil Gleikhengauz explains that he isn't a coach of them, so that's not all his skaters. Of course he has his main skater from France that he coaches, but he's more of a choreographer, so people come in to get a set program from him, and then he can be able to go into the kiss and cry because it is his work. Now in the kiss and cry you have to change into the country's clothes, that's just the rule that you have to do. So of course you saw him always changing into it, but it was just funny as well. Another meme is that a lot of the Russian athletes, especially in the men's, were all basically Russian, the top 10, and they were in the kiss and cry, and it all actually, and the reason why it is like that is because obviously being banned internationally has its consequences, in that many of the Russian skaters don't want to just be stuck. They want that international exposure, they want international competitions, and so then they changed their citizenships in order to represent other countries. So now all the other countries are kind of filled with Russian skaters, which is so funny because Daniil said that when he went to the Olympic Village he was trying to speak English when all of them just said, just speak Russian, we know it, without any accents, and so it was just full of people speaking Russian. Ilya Malinin is one of them as well because he is partly Russian. His two parents are Russian skaters and now are coaches, Tatiana and Roman. Very talented, Ilya Malinin, and there was a debate whether it was the parents' ambition for him to do figure skating or whether it was his own, but he's clearly very built for figure skating. He has the talent, he has the potential, and with that gift his parents are also experts at the field, and so that's why he is having the biggest advantage in his life, because his parents coach him, knowing the expertise and knowing how to set the training, but also he has this gift. And so that's why he's able to backflip, that's why he's able to do that quad axel, be the first man to actually ever land it. Also in these Olympics was Aderi's daughter Diana Davis, who represented Georgia with her partner. A few years ago in Beijing, she represented Russia, and then she switched citizenship to represent Georgia. Now, Team Tutberidze doesn't coach her daughter, mainly because I think some parents don't like teaching their kids because of maybe favoritism, maybe because it will just be harder for them because they don't want to have the criticism, oh, you're going to just focus on the daughter, etc. But I think it was a proud moment for Team Tutberidze as a mother, not a coach, that her daughter made it to the Olympics again and is able to really represent and compete. And so it was just a happy full circle moment. But many athletes in Russia are choosing whether they want to stay within Russia, compete and prove to the world that Russia should be back internationally and want to represent Russia, or whether they want to switch citizenship and actually don't want to wait because their dreams are honestly to be champions, to be Olympic champions, and why stop because of something going on. And so that's why they switch countries. Especially within Russia, only Adele Petrichan and Pyotr Kubenik were allowed to go to the Olympics. For ice dancing and pairs, all rejected for no reason at all, which was so unfair. They were just rejected with no explanation whatsoever. So that made it definitely a lot more difficult for the athletes. Daniil Gleikhengauz doesn't even imagine how hard it is, because international competitions are the motivators for training, are the motivators for an athlete's career. Without that, without working towards your dream, what are you doing it for? What are you sacrificing, etc. So this is the whole gist of the interview breakdown. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts down below about this insight information about the Olympics, about Daniil Gleikhengauz's thoughts about whether Russia should continue being banned or whether the IOC need to reconsider and allow Russian skaters to finally come back to the sport. What do you guys think about this? Let me know your thoughts down below.